Welcome to the webinar with Paul Wilkinson. My name is Claudine and Paul. Maarten Boordewijk of Servision will interview Paul and we will look back at 40 years of his experience. Captured insights, findings and suggestions from thousands of organizations struggling with transforming their IT capabilities. Paul has been writing and talking about the shiny new thing that really helps. We will be examining consistent patterns from the past. Why haven't we solved them? What can and should we do about them? What do we need to do to enable us to prevent them from happening again? For quality purposes, we will now look at the recording of this interview. This will take half an hour. You can ask questions with the question mark in your screen, and after the interview, we will come back and answer your questions. So enjoy and see you soon.
Okay, thanks Claudine for the introduction. Welcome Paul, welcome all, listeners, viewers. So I have some interesting questions for you, Paul.
I bet you do.
Let's see if this works out in this interview.
Okay.
Now, you've been going on a lot about the shiny new thing that really helps. And you've promised a lot of improvements. Yeah. But tell me, you know, things have been going not so well all the time, but if we think about this shiny new thing, what is the main characteristic that's going to make it really help?
Okay, just a bit of background on that. That's an article, you're referring to the article
Absolutely.
I wrote, the shiny new thing that really helps.
Yeah, and all the badges you've been handing out.
That's true. I actually wrote on LinkedIn that I was going to be launching a new framework that would really solve everything.
Right.
And I got 8 times the amount of hits I normally get on a LinkedIn post, which shows that people like shiny new things.
That really helped.
But really, all I said was, I introduced, in fact, ABC, attitude, behavior, culture.
Right.
But if I had to look at a framework, what would be the characteristics of a framework that really helps? It would have to be one that solves some of the problems we've had with existing frameworks.
Yeah.
One would be needing to actually engage with and look at business value.
Okay.
Because at the moment, a lot of the framework becomes the goal in itself. ITIL becomes the goal. We're going to implement ITIL. No, you're not. You're going to try and solve a problem.
Yeah.
So the framework would have a clear indication of what's the problem we're trying to solve.
Right.
2, the framework would also look at the most important bit, which is attitude, behavior, culture.
Right.
Too often the frameworks are looking at the practices and the tooling
and how to do things and in what order,
exactly,
right?
But not how do you embed it.
Okay.
The 3rd thing would be the training, which has been one of my
You mean certification?
Yeah, exactly. You know where I'm going on this.
No, I don't know. Tell me, Paul.
No. It's been one of my bugbears for the whole of the 40 years. We focus so much on the certificate that the certificate becomes the goal. Yeah. We send everybody on to foundation training and then hope that they're going to be able to apply the stuff. And usually it goes horribly wrong, and then people blame the framework.
But still, customers do ask for certificates, right?
And
why is that?
This is part of the problem.
Yeah.
This is part of the problem. So first let me answer the first bit of the question, and I'll get back to that bit.
Yeah.
So I would have a framework where it would be clear that the certificate is not the end.
True. Okay.
Whilst there is value in the certificate, the theory, there's more value in the ability to apply it.
Right. Okay.
So I would want it to have, yes, there's a certification program, but it's got to have some sort of guidance as to how do you translate that into practice,
right? And
how do you do an ongoing mentoring, coaching, training program to develop real skills.
Learning on the job, is that what you mean?
That'd be part of it.
Yeah.
But there would need to be a program in place to say, how do we actually embed the theory in practice and actually get the value from these things? And I think the last thing the framework would have to have is a link with other frameworks.
Right.
Because at the moment, we're really good at pumping out new frameworks. There's ITIL, there's agile, there's lean, there's DevOps, there's COVID.
Right.
But nobody tells you how these things fit together.
Right.
So we all develop these frameworks in silos and our training programs in silos.
Right.
But customers want end-to-end solutions.
Right.
So we leave it up to the customers to try to work out how do you plug all these different frameworks together.
So it is a holistic approach to
that sounds like another buzzword that we keep throwing around.
Yeah.
You asked the other question about the certificates. You said, yes, but that's what clients keep asking for.
That's right.
And that's why we've created as an industry this problem.
Right.
We've got the IP owners that come up with these certification programs. We've got procurement saying we only want to hire people that have got the certificate.
Right.
So we're keeping this thing going by just asking for the certificate.
Okay.
Really, we need to change it from the front end when you buy this IP, the training program needs to go right through to embedding it in the organization.
Okay.
Procurement people should be saying, we want a demonstrated ability to have actually applied this stuff before we hire you, not just a certificate.
Right.
So the only way we're ever going to solve this is by eating our own dog food, which is value chain thinking.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, value chain, value streams, you mean?
Value stream thinking. The whole of the value stream from IP developers, courseware developers, ATOs to procurement to the people going on it. That whole chain needs to be aligned as to what is it we're trying to achieve with this stuff.
And do you think there's still room for the frontal classroom type of training or education?
I think that'll always remain. Everybody's got a different learning style. Some people like learning with experiential learning, like the games we use. Some people like to learn online e-learning. A lot of people like to learn in class because they get to have the dialogue and interact with other people.
Yeah, and make mistakes, right?
And make mistakes, certainly with simulation training.
Yeah, because I remember in the early days of your career, you were talking about not best practices, but worst practices,
Worst practices. That's in fact what started the whole of the attitude behavior culture.
Right,
It goes back to 1998 when we wrote the book called Not the IT Infrastructure Library.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah, one of mine as well.
Yeah.
And that's when I drew the first worst practice cartoons.
Right. Yeah.
And I started presenting them all around the world, these worst practice cartoons. I simply said it's easier to get rid of the worst practices than it is to actually try to adopt and apply all this best practice stuff, which causes frustration, pain, headaches, and everybody hates it. So just get rid of the worst practices. So we came up with the worst practice cartoons, and the frightening thing was people looked at the cartoons and said, hey, that's exactly what we do in our organization.
I recognize this guy.
Which was very worrying. And then I came back every 10 years with exactly the same presentation and exactly the same worst practice cartoons. And here we are now 40 years later, and still the top 10 ABC worst practice cartoons are the same.
It's more or less the same thing.
Pretty much the same.
Do you see any progress? I mean, if we're talking about this long career, we're talking about 40 odd years. Are we seeing any progress? Do you see any progress?
Not enough, because it comes back again to your question of what would an ideal framework have?
Right.
An ideal framework would include attitude, behavior, and culture in it, but they don't. And the ideal framework would make sure that we're actually learning how to apply the stuff.
Right.
But we're not. We keep pumping out generation of new certificates and hoping that that's going to solve the problem.
Solve the problem. Okay. Yeah.
I wrote in that article, I think, a quote from Einstein. Insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting different results. That's what we do with every new framework. We come up with the same foundation level, practitioner level, give everybody the certificates and hope that things are going to change.
Although over time you do see some differences. So for instance, ITIL, one of those models is, has sort of evolved over time.
It's evolved over time.
And so there are some maybe improvements in there, right?
There's improvements in the content itself because the demands on IT has changed over the 4 years as well. We've gone from being simply the technology providers to a support function to IT becoming more important to it now becoming a strategic differentiator. And as IT's made that growth and maturity in businesses, we've also had to change the way we manage this stuff.
So you mean it's no longer just incident, problem and change, but we're also looking at more strategic?
One would hope so.
But you don't really see that.
I still see a lot of people just adopting ITIL and to focus on incident, problem, change and service level management.
So, okay.
Which is what I like about the ITIL 4, because ITIL 4 is now trying to raise the game upwards. As well as end to end.
You mean also thinking about principles? Because that's one of the differences, right? Old ITIL models didn't really talk about principles, now we do.
I think principles is, if you look at the progression we've made from the 40 years I've been in, we started off as technology provider. Then we discovered processes, and ITIL process flows was the big thing. Then we developed and learned about service levels and service catalogs.
True.
Then we suddenly started discovering about flow with agile and DevOps and value streams. And now it's principles. They're the most important thing for me. If you look at lean, agile, DevOps, and now ITIL 4.
It's all understanding value, looking at things holistically and
set of principles. And I think there's 3 key principles that if you look at what's gone wrong in the last 40 years and what needs to change, There's 3 common principles that Agile, Lean, DevOps, and ITIL 4 all have. I looked at them, I looked at all the principles, and there's 3 common ones.
Yeah.
And those 3 common ones are the biggest reasons we fail.
Right.
You want to know what they are?
Well, if you can tell me.
Well, that's in the next interview, and that'll be next month. Okay. Yeah. No, what they are is, the first one is focus on value.
Right.
Because Lean, everybody talks about customer focused and value focused. The first one is focus on value.
Yeah, and understanding who the customer is, I guess, right?
Understanding who the customer is.
Yeah, yeah.
And coincidentally, that has been the top scoring ABC worst practice card 15 years in a row.
Okay.
IT has too little understanding of business impact and priority. Because whenever I get people in an ITIL training, do this yourself. You get people into an ITIL training and you ask them, what problem are you hoping to solve by using ITIL? Most people say, I don't know, I was told to come to the training to get a certificate.
Right.
Exactly. If I ask people what's the definition of a service according to ITIL, I've asked more than 30,000 people worldwide what's the definition.
VOCR.
Less than 5%
I know
know.
it.
Yeah, you know it because you're a trainer, and it's usually the trainers that put their hand up and say, I know what it is. And you're right, it's about value, outcomes, costs, and risks.
Yeah.
And most people say, but we don't need to know that. Now, I had a chief executive officer in one of my trainings, and she said, well, if you don't know that, how can you measure that you're getting what you didn't know you were trying to get in the first place?
Right, right.
And that's the problem. We don't know the problem we're trying to solve with ITIL.
Yeah.
So focus on value is the first principle.
Yeah.
What is value to who? And engage. Like you say, you've got to engage to find out what that value is.
Exactly. Yeah.
The second core principle that they've all got is collaborate, promote visibility.
Right.
We're all talking about breaking down silos. We're all talking about collaboration. It seems to be one of the hottest buzzwords.
Right.
A DevOps skills survey also showed that the biggest skill that's missing is collaboration.
Yeah, and then collaboration between
dev and ops, collaboration between the business and IT.
Biz DevOps, yeah.
And here's the great question, here's a great question, which I would recommend anybody in the audience do as well. This is what we do in our business simulation games.
Right.
I'll have a team in the business simulation game.
Right.
And usually one of the learning objectives is teamwork and collaboration.
Right.
And I'll say to them at the start of the day, okay, what does effective collaboration look like?
Yeah.
What behaviors are we going to see?
What behavior are we talking about? Exactly, yeah.
So you get them to write it down on a flip open. It's usually things like we listen to each other, we all know the goals, we prioritize to the goals, we escalate when we can't meet our work, we stick to our agreements. They'll come up with a wonderful list of these are collaboration behaviors.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask them, is this the way that you'd like to work in your organization?
Right.
Yes. So then we play the simulation.
Yeah.
And in the first simulation...
And then they, of course, do it, right?
Everybody ignores that list of behaviors. Okay. They don't listen to each other. They don't know what the goals are. And everybody's running around like headless chickens.
Yeah.
At the end of the game round, we stop and I go back to that list. Did we apply these behaviors? And no.
No.
Then I ask them, who owns these behaviors?
Yeah.
We do is the answer.
Yeah.
Well, who was the we that was giving feedback to each other and correcting the behaviors when they weren't being done?
Right.
And you see that nobody. So I say, well, who do I blame for this? And the answer is the managers.
Okay.
And I'm saying, wait a minute, the managers are not even in this room.
No.
You said this is what effective collaboration looks like,
Yeah.
but you're the first people to actually let it go.
Yeah.
You realize how hard effective collaboration is, which comes back to ABC, attitude, behavior, culture.
Yeah.
Changing behavior is not easy.
Yeah. But maybe also as the other ABC model that you may also be referring to, behavior consequences, as opposed to focusing on the antecedents, may also be one of the main differences or one of the main things you may want to change, right? So what is the consequence of that? Is there a consequence to applying wrong behavior?
That's what we do in the simulation. We'll get people to try to apply these behaviors, this mythical list in a simulation. They don't do it.
Right.
At the end of the simulation game round, we ask them, how does this feel? Yeah, frustrating, painful, it's not nice, it's stressful.
Yeah.
And then we show them the results.
Yeah.
Wasted costs, delayed solutions, dissatisfied customers.
Yeah.
By the end of the game round, end of the 4 game rounds, at the end, we ask them, how does it feel? Yeah, it feels good. much more relaxed.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we've achieved customer satisfaction. So you've actually achieved everything that you were trying to achieve with ITIL. So how did you do that today?
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah.
Well, we applied this, we applied that, we applied this. They've seen the consequences and felt the consequences.
The positive consequences.
The positive ones.
Not just your pointy finger.
Exactly, not just the negative consequences of me shouting them as chief executive officer in the game. So they felt the pain, and now they feel the benefits.
Right.
And that's basically the best way to get buy into behaviors is what's in it for me.
Yeah, what's in it for, let's say, the system administrator? Obviously, that system administrator is not going to talk to the customer a lot, but how does he or she actually feel the benefit, right?
How do you get the benefit? Here's a good example of, you're right, how do you get the benefit? In one of our games, we pump the system engineer so full of work.
Right.
Just, they can't do everything. They've got so many demands coming from all over the place. And they say, I could have stayed at work if I wanted to go through this. It's exactly like reality.
Yeah. It's like Brent in the Phoenix Project, right?
It's like Brent in the
he's
Phoenix
overloaded.
Project. So they're overloaded. And then we teach them, well, part of the reason you're overloaded is not a proper priority mechanism between business work and maintenance work and downtime work and improvement work. And the other thing, you teach them the benefits of something like problem management.
Right.
So in the game, if they apply problem management, it reduces the amount of ad hoc firefighting work coming to them.
Less headaches.
Less headaches. When we get to prioritize work and visualize work, they're able to go back and say, well, if you want me to do all this work, it's just not possible.
Right.
So tell me, which one do you want to do? This one or this one? And it comes back to value, outcomes, cost and risks. Are we going to go for the value generating work, which is what a lot of companies do, pump out the features, and they ignore the technical debt? Okay, so we're going to ignore this one. Yes, there's a business. In the next game round, what happens? We're losing money, we're losing customer satisfaction because we didn't focus on the technical debt.
Right. It's also short-term, long-term, right?
Short-term, long-term. So this teaching them in a simulation empowers system engineers to make their own work better. It teaches them to, actually empowers them to come up with improvement suggestions at the end to go back to their own management team saying, these are the things we need to change.
So one of the things I've learned over all those years, I mean, we know each other for about 25 to 30 years, is that, you know, but still benefits need to be in some way short-term, right? Because if you feel a short-term benefit, you're more likely to do it again. You agree with me?
I agree. There's got to be short-term benefits and long-term benefits.
Yeah, but the funny thing is I felt is that, we're heading towards the bright future, you know, using this shiny new things that's really going to help us. But then that bright future is far away. And how is that really going to trigger us? Is just the thought of that bright future enough?
If you bought into where are we going and what is the vision and what do we want to achieve as an organization, as Simon Sinek said, the why question is the most important one to get people to do things. Why are we doing this? So part of the why is your daily fulfillment of solving problems, and the other why is where do we want to be? Where do we want to aim for? And when you can get teams together with managers to try to paint a picture of what does success look like in a year's time or in 2 years' time, where are we going? For example, one organization we had, they said, we want to be the best service center in Nederland. Now this gave also the system engineers and everybody something to go for. We want to be the best shared service center.
That gives them a good feeling.
It gave them a good feeling.
Yeah, I want to be part of that.
I want to be part of that.
I want to wear the badge with that company name, right? And part of it was getting the badge, Our badge is we're the best scoring company. So that was something that glued everybody together. They all wanted to go for that ambition. And maybe that's, you know, thinking about badges, is that, you know, we're all collecting badges these days, right? So isn't that the fact that, you know, if you have your ITIL Foundation certificate and wear the badge, then that's what you go for and then that's enough? But yes or no? Is that how?
That comes back to, we're going back to the value question again.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the value of having a certificate? Now, for the individual, the value of having a certificate is that I've got a shiny new badge, and I've got I look at my business card. It's got every single certification going on the planet on my business card. That's the individual value of a certificate. But from a business perspective, what's the value of a certificate? If we're not actually applying it and achieving some sort of business value.
Yeah, business value, and then of course also finding the value for the individual in the service organization, right? Because the more he or she feels that there is a benefit there, or
you brought back a really good point. coming back to one of those core principles that ties us together, focus on value.
Right.
Value is the biggest buzzword we're throwing around, and ITIL's introduced that new word, co-creation of value.
Right, co-creation, indeed, yeah.
So you're absolutely right. What is value and to who is it value? Now we're in an age of this digital disruption where there's a skills shortage, there's a staff shortage, there's massive resignation going on everywhere.
Yeah.
So part of the value equation is the value for the employee.
Yeah.
What's in it for me as an employee? What value do I get? Okay, you get the certificate.
Yeah.
Okay, but what value do we get out of an organization? Efficient, effective, lower cost of ownership. What value do we get out of it as a business? Faster time to market. So you've got to balance all of these different perspectives of value. Yeah. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
But so long as you recognize what are the different perspectives of value, then you can make choices.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
Going back to those principles, because we didn't finish those.
Yeah.
There was three main ones. Focus on value as one, which you've just seen how important it is to have that discussion. What is the individual value? What is the corporate value? What is the team value? That's one. The second one was that collaborate. Okay, what does collaboration look like? Yeah. And it's even more important now because we're in the age of moving to value streams.
Exactly.
End to end. Yeah. DevOps. Dev hates ops, ops hates dev. They both hate the business hates all of us. Yeah. Yeah. So that collaboration, we've got to collaborate now end to end. Yeah. So it's got to be a core skill. Yeah. And the last core principles is continual learning and improvement. Right. And that comes back to one of the things you mentioned earlier about short-term, long-term goals. Yeah, yeah. Continual learning and improvement. Yeah, okay. I'll dare to challenge you, challenge the audience as well. Not one company anywhere in the world has ever implemented one single ITIL process from zero to optimized maturity in one go. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Not possible. No. Not one organization anywhere in the world has implemented all ITIL processes in one go. No. Therefore, ITIL is nothing more than a continual improvement approach. Yet progress when we iteratively. There's another sentence that I remember from the value statements. Progress iteratively. Is that one the one? We'll come back to that in a minute. But first of all, continual improvement, because that's what most people know, continual service improvement. Yeah. So if ITIL then is nothing more than a continual improvement approach. Right. Yet when we ask in surveys around the world, and again I've asked 30,000 people, how many of you are doing CSI? I usually get about 50% of the hands go up. And then I say, no, wait a minute. When I say CSI, I mean left to right, end to end, and top down strategic to operational. The whole thing, yeah. Then I get less than 20% of the hands going up. Right. So it looks like we're implementing ITIL, but we're not implementing the core capability, which is continual learning and improvement. Yeah, yeah. And if you look at adopting all these new ways of working, agile, DevOps, and Lean, nobody's implemented it in one go. No. That means one of those core principles is continual learning and improving. Or in terms of ITIL, as you mentioned, progress iteratively with feedback. Yeah, I remember about 20 years ago we started looking at ISO and we introduced ISO 20000. But now it seems to be that also in the new ITIL version we're really focusing more on an agile approach. And I just mentioned progress iteratively. Do you feel that the whole emergence of agile working does make a difference to? It makes a big difference. I think the whole agile way of working at DevOps, it's been one of the biggest, most positive shifts I've seen in the 40 years. Yeah. We went from that ITIL being so internally focused with process focus. Suddenly things like DevOps came along with the 3 ways of DevOps. Focus on flow, the importance of feedback, the importance of experimentation, the importance of having principles to drive behaviors. Yeah. It was such a positive thing that's happening in our industry. Yeah, yeah. So do you also feel that new roles? I mean, I remember almost 15 years ago we started talking about service owners, and people familiar with Agile know we all have a product owner. Is the service owner maybe sort of like, or could be or should be sort of like a Agile role for service management, do you think? I think that's the problem we're in at the moment is it's all new and it's never been done before. Right. I had a workshop with 15 CIOs, and we were talking about Agile transformations and Agile ways of working. And I asked them, have you got the skills and capabilities to manage this type of organizational culture change? And they said no. We're expected to walk the talk and we don't know what that looks like.
Right.
It's all new, it's never been done before. And that comes back to your roles.
Yeah.
There is so much confusion in the market at the moment as to you've got DevOps coach and agile coach, or you've got a Scrum coach. You've got product owners, you've got product managers, you've got service owners. Right. Oh, by the way, you've got a business relationship manager in there somewhere. Yeah. So again, you've got all of these frameworks pumping out all of these roles, and we're leaving it up to the organizations to say, how do these roles actually fit together? Yeah. Which came back to the original question, where you said, what would be the characteristics of a shiny new framework? Yeah. How does it fit in with other frameworks? Yeah. We never tell people that, so we let them make it up. So I've seen some companies have service owners as being the leading role. Yeah. Other companies that are shifting from project to product have got product owners being the major role. Mm-hmm. Now you're starting to see new roles come along, like value stream manager roles. Right. Because value stream management is the next shiny new thing that's really going to help, and it's really popular. Yeah.
But that in itself is not going to solve the problem.
In itself, it's not going to solve the problem. I can see what's going to happen. The Value Stream Management Consortium's just been created. Yeah. They're pumping out lots about value stream management. There'll be lots of guidance. I'm sure there'll be a certification program as well. Yeah. But I can guarantee you in 5 years' time, we'll be sitting and having exactly the same discussion because the attitude, behavior, and culture hasn't been changed. Yeah.
And isn't it also true, you know, and I'm referring to another interesting addition to the whole set of frameworks, Cynefin, that we're talking about, you know, ultimately maybe a very chaotic situation and not a, you know, a known situation where we can just apply best practices, right? So maybe we're aware of that now also. That
who's we?
No. Let's focus on you.
No. You as a trainer are probably aware of Cynefin. Yeah. But let's look at the organization now. Let's look at the maturity. Yeah. We've still got organizations struggling to go from technology to process providers. There's the one that's just want incident problem change. Right. We've got organizations making the shift from being a process to service provider with service catalog, service provision, and service delivery organizations. Mm-hmm. Right. Then we've got organizations trying to shift towards agile, lean, and DevOps. Right. Then we've got organizations trying to say, now we're business IT integrated partners. So you've got this massive maturity, and you can plot organizations along there. Cynefin is something up here now. Yeah. It's a total new framework which you'll have to explain to everybody what it is, about complex thinking and chaos. And you are right, we're in an age now of digital disruption. The pace of change is enormous. The complexity of everything we do is enormous.
Exactly, yeah.
And something like Cynefin needs to be a new skill set that people learn.
Yeah. So it's also, you know, the more we know we don't know a lot of things, right? Yep. Yeah.
Which comes back again to why continual learning and improvement needs to be a core capability. Yeah. Things change so fast, they're so unpredictable, you do not know what's happening, you don't know what's coming next, but you need to be able to pivot and change as quick as possible. Yeah. And when you've embedded that into everybody's mindset and culture, that continual learning and improvement.
Yeah, on the one hand you could say there is a need for certain stability and resilience, but we also need to be able to change, to be agile, right? And to understand that things are very complex, but still certain simple things can still be done and make a difference, like understanding value. Right, in itself,
that should be driving everything.
Yeah, a number of good talks with your business owners can already make a huge difference there, right?
That would make a huge difference. It's one of the pieces of advice I usually give to people is send everybody into the business for one day to find out how they use it. Yeah. Find out how IT actually contributes to value and outcomes or damages costs and risks. Yeah. Send everybody out to find out what is it we do and how can we support the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's that top scoring card, 15 years in a row. Yeah. IT has too little understanding of business impact and priority. Yeah.
It's almost like being not a service integrator, but maybe even a business integrator, right? Taking it even one step further than that.
That's where there's a lot of thinking. You hear terms like business IT alignment is an old term. You hear things like business integration. You hear things like business fusion. Yeah. However you look at it, we've got to engage with the business, understand the business a lot more. Right. I was recently at an enterprise leadership forum roundtable. A number of CIOs were actually talking about this. Right. And they were all asked, what is your biggest success? What would you recommend? And that was get down and sit with the business to solve their problems. And they gave a great example of one of the baggage check-in at an airport. And the whole of the software team and the business product owner sat there for a whole week just to see how that process worked.
Right, observations.
To see how it works, observe how the flow of baggage works, observe the interaction between the person at the counter and the customers. And based upon that, they were then able to change software. But it was purely only by actually observing what gets done, how does work get done.
Yeah, is that also, you know, referring to things like customer journeys and user experience and all those things? Yeah.
All those lovely new buzzwords and terminology we're using. I think the person that inspired me the most around this was I was at a conference once talking to a lady that was a service manager, and she's now a BRM, business relationship manager.
Right.
And she said to me, I haven't been to an IT service management conference for 2 years.
Right.
And I said, explain to me. Said, I just go to conferences with our farmers. We're in the agricultural business.
The business,
So all I do is I go to agricultural conferences with our product owners. And she said, in the beginning, I didn't understand a single word of it.
Right.
But the more I listened to their problems, the better I was able to say, how can IT support them? So now we actually build sort of humidity control systems, handheld wireless from in-field scientific research. So she's now saying, we're now able to proactively help the business because we sat down, talked to them and understood them. But too many IT people, they've never even met a user. How many IT people have actually sat down and met a user?
They're sitting behind the screens and doing their, you know,
get out there and engage with them.
Dashboards. I know everything because I'm looking at the dashboard. I see all the numbers are green, so you must be satisfied.
Watermelon SLAs.
I remember once being at an airport, and it was one of those airports in, you know, the world that wasn't really, let's say, progressed. And they said, there was this lady who said, this airport really is an ordeal from a passenger or traveler perspective. And then I thought, this is what we're dealing with a lot, right? We just have to be there with our users and understand maybe what we're doing is an ordeal for the user.
It would make a big difference. And that's why you say, as you mentioned earlier on, that customer experience and user journeys are becoming popular terms that are getting thrown around at the moment.
But then again, it's still about integrating many different influences. And is there, you know, to go back to the original question, is there a one solution? Is there a shiny new thing out there that is really going to help us?
There'll be shiny new things coming across all the time.
Right.
There's no one thing that's ever going to help. The only thing you do know, and that's why it comes back to what that shiny new thing was, really was ABC again. We wrote the ABC book in 2006, I think it was. Now whenever I submit a speaking proposal at a conference for ABC, I get to hear, no, we've done ABC, that's old. That's old, we did that 10 years ago when you first came out with it. Haven't you got anything new like AI or robotics or transformation?
A tool,
So I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, we haven't even solved ABC and you're saying it's old and no longer relevant. So that was my joke about that article, The Shiny New Thing. I said, I'm going to tear the cover off the ABC book and call it The Shiny New Thing That Really Helps. And then maybe people will want to get certified in it and they'll want to buy tools in it and compliant tools. So that was a joke. But coming back to it, things will always change and there'll always be new tools and new frameworks. The only thing you have to accept is this: with every single new change that comes across, it requires changing people's mindset to buy into it. Whatever it is will require people to change the way they behave. And whatever it is will ultimately create new cultural values and norms in an organization. So the shiny new thing is going to be ABC. So long as we can embed that as a core capability, that no matter what changes come and no matter what framework gets thrown at us, if we address the attitude, behavior, culture.
So if you look at your career, and now this is going back to you, and now that, you know, your professional career is sort of going into a new stage, let's put it that way.
Stopping, retiring.
Not entirely retiring, but, you know, But what difference have you made, you think? What is your major contribution to the IT service management world?
I would say none.
Okay.
But
thank you.
But because I launched this shiny new thing that really helps, and as you say, I've been giving out badges to people, real badges of value to say, look, you've inspired me over the time. if I look at the feedback I've got from companies where I've actually done simulation games, I'm getting such an enormous feedback from you're not aware of the changes that you actually brought about in the company.
Yeah.
Because often we come in and we do our ABC, the presentation, I shout, I point my finger, I moan at everybody.
Yeah.
We play the games, they come up with a checklist of things, and then we go.
Yeah.
But when you hear from people 20 years later that say, we're still using what you taught us and we're still using ABC, that makes you feel good and you know you've achieved something.
Yeah, and I remember once people told me, once you really like something, you're bound to be making a difference, or there is an opportunity for you to make a difference because you like something. What did you like most? Final question.
What did I like most?
What did you like most in your career?
Meeting people by doing the simulations. Because there are so many smart, passionate people out there really wanting to make a difference. Right. And that's what I've missed certainly from COVID. The last 2 years I haven't had a chance to travel and meet people. Right. And doing the simulations gave us a chance to travel to most countries and meet so many people and learn from so many people. So I will miss that face-to-face connection and inspiration from meeting the people.
So hopefully we don't have to meet you anymore via the internet, but we can actually go out there. And
hopefully. I will be doing the world tour of the shiny new thing that really helps.
We're looking forward to that.
I've already done 2 of those, and I'm going to be doing another one at the SurVision conference.
Okay, excellent.
So I guess that's a plug coming up for you guys.
Exactly, so coming up, the SurVision conference with Paul. Thank you very much, Paul.
I'm looking forward to being there.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. It's always been, we better not do that, it's COVID.
We're not doing that,
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome back. So we have received some nice questions, Paul. There's the first question. Any opinion on why we need frameworks at all for IT to be successful? Or is principles like agility enough?
Well, as we talked about in that interview just now, the principles are really important. For me, they're the fundamental. Translating principles into behaviors, but there's still a place for the frameworks. There has to be a place for the frameworks. For example, if we're talking about focus on value that we just did, and we're talking about solving issues for customers, we still need something like, okay, how does an incident management process look like? What are the steps you would need to go through? Where would value be embedded in this process, such as a priority mechanism? So the frameworks give us a really good reference to say, okay, how do we actually structure and make consistent the flow of those behaviors? So I think there's always a place for them. And the other thing about frameworks is also they show the integration between, for example, the incident management process and how does that fit with the problem management process and how does that fit with the change management process. So it should show the flow of behaviors. So yes, there's always a place for them.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to drive down to value and to make it specific, you do need to have some structure. Is that what you're saying? You
need some sort of repeatable way of doing things.
Right.
Now the problem we do with frameworks though is we turn them into bureaucratic books of procedures that have to be followed to the letter. Whereas this is the flow of steps that need to take place.
Like a guidance. More.
Like a guidance. And that's what they always were supposed to be, guidance that you adopt and adapt, not rigidly implement with books of procedures and follow to the letter.
Yeah, but suppose you're in a business critical environment, right? So things have to be running and performance has to be high and things like that. Then you have to be more structured, right?
You've got to be, in some cases you've got to be more structured.
Yeah.
And that's what NASA does as well. Look at NASA with Apollo 13. They had a structured set of processes and procedures they followed until something went wrong. And then I think it was Ivan McFarlane that used that term, intelligent disobedience.
Right.
There comes a moment where the procedures haven't covered this. Yeah. And now we've got to intelligently say, based upon the philosophy of the principle, what do we now need to do to maintain a focus on value?
Right.
And that's why principles underpin everything, so long as you know what was the intention we were trying to achieve. I think a great example for, yes, you do need the structure, yes, you need the procedures. In Holland, we've got that brilliant advert about the purple crocodile.
Right.
The woman's lost something at the swimming pool and she sees the purple crocodile and says, I want my purple crocodile back. No, you've got to fill in the form first. That's what we do in IT. Yeah, you've got to fill in all the forms, everything, before we'll do anything.
In order to annoy the users.
Yes. We've turned that into a fine art as well.
Oh, this one is nice, Paul. Which aspect of our field of work would you have considered yourself to have become more mild?
More mild?
During the past 40 years?
Well, I've been labelled as the grumpy, pointy-fingered old man that's always... I think I've become milder in the fact that in the beginning I thought you just tell people and they would change behaviour, and if you shout loud enough they'll change behaviour. I've become more mild because I realise that changing behaviour does take time. You need patience, it takes time, and everybody's living in their own doubts and fears. We're in the age of fear, uncertainty and doubt, and you've got to take that into account. So take that into account, but still be direct with what needs to change. And I've still been pointing that finger. And I think I was pointing the finger in my head in that conference, in that interview.
Would you be able to, let's say what I've once heard is to, you know, be quiet, but still you're, you know, like a lion, you're saying, this is, you know, you're...
I think a lot of people come after the presentations and say passionate.
Yeah.
They say you're very passionate and you believe in what you're saying. Yeah. And I think that's what comes back.
I think, yeah, clarity, or, you know, to be clear is maybe the biggest challenge, right?
Which is a big challenge for us in IT. Now that you're talking about that, I think we talked in the interview about communication and collaboration are two core skills. Yeah. And we in IT are really, really bad at communicating. Right. Clarity would help enormously. Yeah. Clarity, consistency of message.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and if you're really angry, then people may not even hear you anymore. Is that also maybe what you mean?
Not necessarily. I mean, I get angry on stage. I jump around on stage, and I often say, right, I'm now going to play the chief executive officer role, and then I jump up and down and I start pointing, and then I go back to being Paul. And I say, do you recognize the CEO doing that? Do you understand why he was angry? So you're trying to put yourself in somebody else's perspective. Why would they be angry? Well, if you see what we do to a lot of businesses, you can see why they're angry.
It's a little bit you're playing the role as a mission director in the Marsland, right?
Yeah. That's right. I play the chief executive officer in the games. Yeah. And I'm really fair. That's what I say in the beginning. I'll be really fair so long as you do what you say you were going to do, and so long as you demonstrate and deliver value like you said you were going to do, then I'll be the nicest chief executive officer there is. But when you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it, and then you don't tell me you weren't going to do it, you just don't do it, then I'll get angry. So I try to play it realistically. And a lot of people say, wow, if I wanted to go through this, I could have stayed at work. Oh, so you recognize this at work? Yeah, our business is always shouting at us. Do you know why they're shouting at you? Yeah, because we did what we just did in the game. We don't listen to them, we don't escalate, we don't understand priorities, and we assume far too much. That's another thing we're good at in IT, assume aside.
An ass out of you and me, right?
Yeah, that's it, assume aside. We think we know, and we think we know what needs doing, and we make so many assumptions.
So let's come a little bit back to value. There is a question about value. It says, what can you do to prevent value streams or customer journeys to become just another step on the list? Without any real meaning or value, what would you be your advice to a young service manager or business relationship manager who start in our field of work?
About value streams?
Yeah.
To make them meaningful? Okay, to make them meaningful, this is, how long have we got? Another 40 minutes? Value streams have got the danger now of becoming another shiny new thing, and they're going to be bureaucratically implemented. Yeah. What's going to happen is somebody's going to say, we need a value stream, and we're going to get 2 consultants that have been on a training, and we're going to lock them in a room to make a value stream. And then they're going to come out with a bureaucratic value stream and tell everybody, look, there's the value stream. We need to go back to value streams the same way we should have developed ITIL processes. Get everybody from the end-to-end value chain together in the room. Get the business, the product owner, dev, network, get everybody together in the room. And they say, right, what does this value stream look like? Here's some sticky post-it notes, stick on the wall, what happens? And if you can get from the business all the way through sticky post-its, I've had one about 20 meters long, and it was something like 250 steps. Get people to actually map the value stream, because then it's an eye-opener. Do we really do this? Yes, we really do that. It goes there, it goes back, it goes up, it goes back, it goes down, it goes there, it goes back. Why are we wasting all that time? So when you can get people together to visualize how work flows, and they can see where they're making mistakes, that's the real value of value streams. Getting people together to talk about it. But we'll probably turn it into a bureaucratic exercise like we do with ITIL.
You have to come back from your...
No, I won't be coming back. Although I do say, every 10 years I give exactly the same presentation with the same ABC cartoons. And I guarantee I will be back in 10 years' time. If I was going to, I would be back in 10 years' time with the same.
So the most valuable observations, because this is what you need, right? Observations. Where do you get them? Is that the gaming or the simulation environment that you're in a lot? Or is it, you know, just going to the work floor and see what they're doing? What sort of... Because is it the high pressure of the simulation, in other words, that is helpful in understanding what's happening in the interaction?
I think that's the value of the simulations. Yeah. Because in the simulations, we try to bring stakeholders from the whole value stream or value chain together.
Right.
So often I'll have a business person, a development person, a systems engineer, operator, help desk. We get somebody from the whole of the end-to-end teams in the room. Yeah. And that's the value of the simulation, because we throw work into the simulation. Right. And you can see it all happening in one room. Yeah. You don't normally see that because people are in different offices. But when you can see everybody in one room, where work stops, where they don't talk to each other, where the wrong information's passed, where they don't record the information, it all becomes so visible. And then after playing the game, often I recommend people now go and find out what it looks like in your company. Yeah. Go and map a real value stream and see how stupid it is. Or actually go and walk and see work happening. Yeah. That's the best advice I ever gave to, it was a CIO from a company, and we did a simulation, and I asked the question, when was the last time you sat down with a user? And he said, I speak to the business all the time, every week. I said, oh, not the business, when did you last speak to a user? And he sat and thought about it. He's been a CEO for 7 years, and he said, I've never actually spoken to one. Yeah. And I said, go and sit down next to a user. Yeah. And this was a tax agency. And he went and sat down next to one of the ladies filling in tax forms as people come in. And he was watching her, and it took something like 25 minutes to deal with this one person. And he was watching her go from one screen to another, cut and paste and fill in different fields. And he said, why are you doing that? We could fix that in half an hour. Why didn't you tell us? And this was the best answer ever. She was 19-year-old, and she said, wait a minute, what do you mean, why didn't we tell you? You're the first person from IT who's ever come and sat down to see what we're doing and ask those questions. And who works for who here? Quite right. Yeah. Yeah. So IT actually changed that. Because of what he saw, they went back and changed that. Right. And it went from 25 minutes per person down to 10 minutes per person, right. Which meant for all those tax people, 5,000 of them across the country, they'd saved hundreds and hundreds of hours per month because of this one change, right. Which they could then invest in looking at tax fraud, where they saved something like 35 million euros from tax fraud. Yeah, using their capability more smart. Simply because IT said, how can we make your life smarter? Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we need to be doing. Yeah. Go out, engage, co-create value.
Paul, there are some questions, so I'm going to interrupt you, sorry. What is the role of formal IT certification in the future versus practical learning? You were just talking about practical learning. And how do you encourage the learning for life of thinking for coming generations?
There's 3 questions in one there,
yeah,
I think.
so.
So what was the first question about?
The first thing is about formal certification versus practical learning.
I'm all for practical learning. I think everybody knows I've always ever been for practical learning. And I've always said, whilst there is value in the certificate, and that is often for the individual to put it on their CV. They've got to have it on their CV because procurement says you've got to have a certificate to come and work here. Right. So there's value in the certificate just to actually say, look, I've got the certificate. Yeah. But there's more value in the ability to apply it. So I'm a strong believer for you have to show and demonstrate that you can actually use the theory in practice. And it's something that we were all talking about earlier on. Yeah. How can you actually, after a training, give somebody a task? Okay, you've got the theory, now show me how you apply it. So as a manager, it's your job to create an environment where somebody can try and apply the theory. With feedback, with coaching, with mentoring. Sit down next to somebody and see how they do it. There's so many ways, and simulations is one way. There's so many ways of translating theory into practice, but we don't do it. It costs far too much time. The easiest thing is to send everybody to get a certificate, let them come back and hope that they start applying the stuff. Yeah. This has been my most passionate thing. I think we talked about it in the interview. This is the bit that gets me the most angry. Yeah. And this is the bit that gets me really wagging my finger. It is this fact that we just don't do it. Yeah. And as we were talking earlier on, And we use this thing called the 8-field model, which I cannot strongly recommend that everybody uses the 8-field model.
Why do you do training?
And it's why do you do a training, and how can you evaluate the power of the training? Yeah. Now, the first way you evaluate the power of training is 9 out of 10 for the trainer, or 10 out of 10 for Martin, because he's really good. He's a brilliant training. 3 out of 10, the coffee sucks. We're really good at that. Yeah. The next level we're great at, that's test. There's more than 2 million ITIL certificates. We're brilliant at that. Now we get to the tricky bits. The next level up is, do we actually see new behaviors taking place after the training? Now, a Harvard business study and our surveys around the world show something like 12%. 12% of companies actually make sure that the theory is being used at the workplace. Yeah. So that means something like 80% is just wasting money. Yeah. Right. And then the next bit is, can we now actually see the benefits of the training? Now, if you go back to ITIL, it's all about value, outcomes, costs, and risks. Okay, we sent everybody on the training. Okay, show me what value we've got from it. Yeah. Are outcomes better? Is customer satisfaction gone up? Have we lowered costs? Yeah. If you can't measure what you've got from it, then you're just hoping you're getting something from it. Yeah.
So we're coming at the last minutes of this webinar. We have been enjoying 40 years of your experience and listening to all the things that you have been saying all around the world. And we asked from one of your dearest partners all around the world to say some last words to you.
Oh no.
Yes, so you will be watching some of their inputs. It's a short compilation. We will give you the long compilation so you watch it in all your peace at home. So if you want, just take a look at what they say about you.
This wasn't part of the agreement.
Here it is.
Oh no, the hardest working man in IT service management is retiring.
Houston, we have a problem. Houston, there's a moose in space.
Moose in space?
It looks like Paul Wilkinson. I don't understand.
Paul who?
Paul Wilkinson.
Thinking about Paul is a very easy question, but very hard to answer.
Great man, full of energy. And his finger. I will never forget his finger. The first thing that comes to our mind when we think about Paul is ABC, attitude, behavior, and culture. He has been truly a legend who has made a significant impact to the ITSM industry.
I want to thank you for your energy, for your professionalism, but definitely also for your ability to constantly focus on how to translate theory into practice.
What he gave to the community. He was always with us. He was putting pressure. He was explaining. He was teaching. He was taking care.
You know, the guy that points his finger and just drives us crazy.
Oh, the guy that's always going on about customer value and some strange thing called a service?
Exactly.
What I really appreciate about you, Paul, is how fast you were able to transfer the problems in the world in IT into simple sentences, nice humoristic stories that everyone understood.
I wish Paul a happy retirement, and we will miss Paul's contribution in the years to come.
Hi, Paul. It's David Radcliffe here, out here in Arizona, which I think was where we first got together.
What is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Paul? I think of his honesty and his clarity over the years and helping us realize that common sense is really what we need to change our attitudes and our behaviors to get to the culture that we want.
I want to thank you for being part of my professional life. I've learned a lot from you from the very beginning.
Well, his passion, of course, and his passion as personified by the finger.
So when I think about Paul, I think of three different things, I think. The first one is the 8-field model, which I found so useful when talking to my customers, when helping people to understand why they're doing training and make sure they get some real value out of training. It's been brilliant. Thank you, Paul.
Hey, Paul. Jan asked us to say a few words because we all know you're retiring, even though probably in secret you're not.
His contribution to the community has been immense. Thank you, Paul.
I've heard that from somebody that you want to downsize a little bit.
And the way people behave. And that's what you've brought to the community, Paul, and we'll miss you for that. Although I don't think you're really going away, are you? You're not going away. You're going to be around.
There is a famous phrase about seeing further by standing on the giant's shoulders. I am pretty sure that for the ITSM industry and for myself, Paul Wilkinson is the giant. He is a reliable partner. He is a very creative and smart professional, and it's such an honor and such a joy to work together and to know him for all these years.
You've personally supported me and inspired me during this time. For example, with this ABC cards, yeah? The attitude, behavior and culture. This has become an unmissable mirror for our IT society.
What I did find was a very warm personality who was a deeply caring person, able to not getting dragged into the madness and helping me, you know, confirming the things I've been seeing and thinking and which you were actually able to say out loud to a lot of people.
Hi, Paul. I thought I'd chip in as well and wish you all the very best for your retirement.
I fondly remember Paul's boundless generosity. For instance, in meetings where I always ended up with a majority of the action items. Paul's biggest contribution to the IT service management community was in single-handedly making them feel guilty about not knowing the ITIL definition of service. Thanks, Paul.
One word, Paul. An inspiration for the whole world. It has been an honor working with you. It has been a pleasure and will be difficult for someone to follow your footsteps.
Trying to give us a hand. So I appreciate all you've done for me and for my colleagues also in all these years. And you fought the war, eh? You fought the war of the fixed mindset and you won a lot of battles and now it's our turn to take over.
One of my favorite memories of Paul is when he went to Denmark for a conference and was the pharaoh in Charles of Egypt. What about you?
Yeah. And you, Paul, you have been a great contribution to our journey here in the Danish society. So from Metier Vestergaard, from me and from Pernilla and all our employees, we thank you very much.
And wish you a very happy retirement.
Yeah. And Paul?
See you in Copenhagen.
See you in Copenhagen next year for our conference, when you have your celebration journey around the world. Thanks.
Use those KLM miles. Take your family to some country that you never visited before. But at this point, I don't think I can name a single country that you haven't visited, save maybe North Korea and maybe Antarctica. But, you know, enjoy your retirement, but stay involved, stay active. And I really look forward to seeing you either, you know, personally or at a conference or whatever it might be in the years to come. So take care, buddy.
Many thanks, Paul, for introducing us to your wisdom, your energy, and even the fact that we now get paid to play games with our customer.
I'd also like to point out that how you helped us to get into the interactive learning part and really driving a whole different connection with our customers using those simulations. It's been a critical part of our success so far. So we really thankful for what you've done for us.
But we still will miss you, your motivation and your passion. Thanks for that, Paul.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing you somehow again, but I also hope that you will enjoy your free time for the rest of your life. Bye.
And the final one that I'd love to be able to steal from you is the way you use the definition of a service to help turn a dry definition that means nothing to nobody into a really powerful tool for helping organizations to understand how they can create value. It's been brilliant, Paul. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to welcome you and your lovely wife during at our Service Management Forum Switzerland.
So take care, enjoy your retirement, and I think we're going to see a lot more about you in the coming years. As we say in Argentina, gracias totales. Paul, take care. Bye.
Hopefully the family aren't going to get annoyed with you as much as they've been getting annoyed with you over the years, but you know what? That's what retirement's going to mean, isn't it? Spending more time with your family, so you think. Anyway, take care. See you later. Bye-bye.
His constant efforts to say, look, guys, it's common sense. Use that. Get better. Have fun. And I hope that in his retirement, he can just relax, drink a beer, go do something. But if you want to, keep on ranting. Stay well, Paul. Thank you very much.
Now, Paul, when you get a lot of time on your hands, come and help me with this one, because I haven't really found the time to put it together yet. So, Paul, enjoy your retirement. You've earned it. You deserved it. And thank you very much from Johnny People Team Denmark. Over and out. Bye for now, Paul.
So,
wow.
That's it.
I wasn't expecting that.
No.
I really wasn't expecting that.
You want to say something to the audience? And
is this still on? Is this the
we're
win?
Still on.
Wow. No, I'm blown away. I'm speechless. It's so nice. It brings back so many memories to see all those people that have inspired me, that I've learned from as well. And the chance to travel around the world and meet all those wonderful people. It's just, that's what makes our industry great. Getting to travel and meet people like that and work with them. I'll certainly miss that.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure we will still hear from you when you're doing your world tour with the shiny new thing. Yeah. For now, I want to thank you a lot for everything you have done for us and for the society, speaking amongst all the people listening and all around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, this was a real surprise. Thanks. Thanks. Thanks very much.
Thank you for watching, and see you soon.